All right, so well, thank you everybody for coming. Have you had a good event? Did you all see Steve's keynote this morning?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was like the top level of demo presentation. Holy moly, that was pretty impressive. So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to try and compete with that. That's, very good, very good. Who here has their first NDC event? Oh, that's excellent. Very good. Because it was been in Melbourne once before, right, in 22, and then usually it's in Sydney. So we'll see if it comes back next year, the year after. I'm not sure what the plan is, but I am here to talk about Azure and testing. Come on, yay! Because I'm a dev, right? And testing is something that we avoid maybe a bit. So I thought, well, I like Azure. Let's delve into that. So the plan is to have a whole bunch of examples of how testing can be done with cloud stuff, or Azure in particular, but it probably applies to all clouds, I'd imagine, but with Azure specific things, okay? So that's, if any of you read the agenda like 2 weeks ago and you saw me, there was another talk, I apologize, I had to change it for various reasons. So we're here now. All right. Hi, I'm Lars. I have an MVP sticker, which means I talk a lot about Azure. So Microsoft gives you stickers. That's the MVP program for you, in a nutshell. It's nice, but I always mention my YouTube channel because that's my side project in my free time, and I'd love you to go check it out. It's just my name, and I released a new video this morning. Did anyone see the space talk just before? Anyone go there? Because I got Richard up on the farm and we did a video together. So that's actually kind of fun. So anyway, I do a lot of YouTube stuff. That's not what this talk is about. I just like mentioning it because I'm pretty proud of it. All right. My talks are always very interactive. I like questions. I like conversation. I like hearing from you and questions, whatever. So if you have questions or heckles or whatever, sure. Shout it out, put your hand up, whatever you're comfortable with. Someone has to be first. We've got to break the ice somehow. So just, someone has to take that hit. But yeah, I'm very happy to have questions all throughout the talk. I don't mind. Or at the end, whatever you prefer. It's all good. If some of you have good questions, I am almost done writing a book. Now I have been almost done writing this book for about a year, but I have one chapter to go. So I have a few copies I can give away digitally. So if you have good questions, whatever, I might virtually throw a book at you. But yeah, it's almost done, but you can get access to everything that's written so far. And it's on Azure, surprise, surprise. I don't remember if any of this, maybe some of the stuff in the talk, maybe not. But yeah, so a bit of incentive, bit of a carrot for you all to come up with something, questions, because that's why you're here, I'm hoping, is to learn stuff, not just to be talked at. Right, so please ask lots of questions. Who here is a developer? Who here is a manager? Out. I'm both. No, this is a pretty, sort of dev-heavy talk, but I know how devs approach testing. So I've actually found a couple of resources for you just before we start. So you might want to take a picture of this. The first one that I've found is excuses for not writing unit tests. I've used that a lot. Brilliant. It gets you through a lot of questions. We also have hoping this works. That's a common approach to testing. There's practical testing. Just click around and see if anything breaks. Who's done that? Everybody. Oh, come on, seriously. It's like, no, I clicked some buttons, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. And finally, we have commenting out failed tests. An all-time classic. So yeah, these are essential resources, especially if you're talking to QA. Gotcha. Good, okay. All right, slight problem, I can't see my notes. So we're gonna make it up as we go along. For some reason, all three screens are the same. Okay, here's another pie chart for how developers do approach testing. I think you're getting the point now. What do you mean testing? By far the most, and my machine isn't fast enough. I've used that a couple of times. Doesn't always work. Obviously, because it's not fast. Never mind. Yes. All right. Now, I want to talk about certain areas of cloud testing. So each of them going to have like its own little segment. 10 minutes or so. The first thing is pass. So you know what a say PaaS, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, you know what that means, right? I don't have to explain it. Otherwise, it's fine to put your hand up and say you don't know, by the way. We're not trying to shame someone. I just want to make sure you're following. But if you're testing PaaS, what do? Exactly, right? Yes. So there are a couple of things that I want to show you, in particular with app services. So I should have asked at the start, who uses Azure as their, say, platform, either daily or predominantly? Okay, cool. Who uses another cloud, as well as Azure, maybe? Who uses Alibaba Cloud? There's never anyone. No, okay. I think the ideas are sort of crossing all the clouds, to be honest. They're pretty general ideas, but I'm going to look at specific services, like I said. First one being app service. We're going to look at staging, A/B testing, and some load testing-ish. I'm going to get back to load testing a bit later as well. So, let me show you. So here are some app services in Azure, and these are not real. I don't have any production code, right? I haven't written production code for quite a while, especially on Azure, for this account, so it's fine. I have one here which is CYOCA. It stands for Choose Your Own Cloud Adventure. This was an app that I built a year ago, whatever it says, 2 years ago, whatever it was, because I wanted to have a talk where I could get you to choose. So you didn't get that talk today, but there was a little app that ran with it, and that's this app, right? So, do you want to go this way or that way? You know the old Choose Your Adventure books? Same idea, but in a talk. It worked well-ish. So in here we have a couple of things. Now, I'm just going to go straight to the meat of it because we don't have that much time. There's deployment slots. Who have used deployment slots for anything? Oh, good, excellent. All right. So this shouldn't be too much. If I add a slot here, it's basically on the same app service plan / VM, really, because naming. You can have an instance of the same app service, but running as a separate namespace, essentially. So if I give this a name, and I say we call it NDC Melbourne, right? You can, well, maybe you can see, maybe you can't. I can point, I think. Yeah, I can show. Look at that. But it comes up as CYOCA-ndcmelbourne.com or Azure websites, right? Up there. So that's what you do. And you get up, you can clone some settings if you want. So you can have, whatever settings. I'm not going to clone any settings. I'm going to add a deployment slot. It doesn't take long. And now we have a way of deploying to something that isn't live. But we can still get to it because it has a domain. That make sense? Yeah? The people that know deployment slots, obviously you go, yeah. But the people that didn't. That shouldn't take too long. But Wi-Fi, let's see. So when you have deployment slots, you have essentially got a staging instance. It is the simplest way that you can make sure you don't test in production. Right, so hopefully that makes total sense. So now we have 2 deployment slots because there was already one because we had production, but obviously it doesn't show that because, So now we have 2. So that's cool. If we have code, we can deploy it directly to that second deployment slot through APIs, pipelines, whatever you're using. And then we just click the little swap button up here, and then we can swap the 2. So production becomes staging, staging becomes production. Simple, right? Easy. Woo. How many deployment slots should you have? Good. Oh, there's something. Yes, Brian? As many as you need. It's true, because there's no right answer. What I will say, once you get to 5, question your choices. It starts getting really tricky to manage, but there is no limit on it as such, right? But we swap them, and then the code that was in staging becomes production, and the other way around, right? Now, one of the cool things here that a lot of people either don't use or ignore or don't know about is that at the end you have a traffic percentage, right? Has anyone used that? No, exactly. No one ever uses that. So this is literally, like it says, traffic percentage. So if I went 50, you can see the other one changes to 50. What do we have now? A/B testing, or whatever you want to call it. No one actually uses A/B testing, but anyway, I found that out later. But you now have 2 separate things. You can test 2 different slots, essentially. And everything manages itself. So Azure will manage the whole load balancing and everything for you. So you get that for free because you're still just paying for the app service plan. Yes, Brian. What else do people call it? No, my point is that no one actually does A/B testing. Like, we always talk about A/B testing. We all know what A/B testing is. You have a blue button or a red button. What makes the most sales? No one actually does that. Facebook is probably the closest because they have such a vast database that they can say, well, every male over 50 in California in the city, well, whatever, they can target that specifically. So that's sort of a local testing. But it is also good for just spreading out things for based on geographics. Like you can set up excuse me, config files for each that does different things and whatnot, right? So yes, it's in kind of an A/B testing, but not in the traditional sense. Or at least you could, but no one ever does. Yes.
So these are different domains, right?
Well, they are different directly addressable domains, but if you do that, it's still the top level domain, or the real domain, whatever you call it. And to ask me how I know, I did this demo once, right? And because I'm a dev, I was testing production, I used my own website, larsklint.com, because it's on Azure, on an app service. And I put that at like 10 and 90 just to show how it worked. Forgot about it. Completely forgot about it. And then a month later, 2 months later, I don't look at my own website as such. Someone messaged me going, your website's down. I'm like, no, it isn't. Nope, not down. I'm like, hey, that's probably something else. It's probably caching. Now, it was that 10% was going to something that didn't exist. So that's why I know that that's how it works. Yes?
If you type in the staging address,
Mm-hmm.
does it redirect? Do you have to type production as well?
No, it does not.
Okay.
It goes to the actual, it is fully qualified domain. And it works because that's the one you can give to your client. Right? So you can have a showcase deployment slot, for example. Yeah, well, once you do that, then I think you negate that domain, right? Because you're saying, oh, right. Should we try? It's fine. All right. Hey? What was the domain again? cyoca.azurewebsites.net. Is that right? Hey? There it is. Look at that. Okay. May or may not work, because I can't remember what's actually on this website now. It's been a while since I used it. Right. So which one is that? That's the slot, right? That's the other one. So you're saying, what if I go to the directly addressable one, which I should get the same, right? So this is what was it, NDC Melbourne? Like that? Yeah, it gets the same thing. And obviously now,
Is there a production one that you can directly address?
yeah, there is, which is that one, but it switched between the two.
No, but I mean, is there one where you can directly address
No.
your team for production?
No. No, that's not how it works. There may also not be anything right there right now, because I can't remember what the last deployment was I did. This is the beauty of impromptu live demos, because we just made shit up, right? Yeah, so that's the deployment slots, A/B testing. There is down here, see there's a load testing part. Actually, before I get in trouble, because I know none of you were going to remind me, because you bastards. I am going to get rid of this here. And just delete that bugger. There we go. Type the deployment. Oh, really? It's making me do typing. All right, cool. So on the actual app. Oh, whatever. There we go. You happy? Well, now it doesn't break, so I'm going to leave it there for the next talk. Let's see. There's a load testing part of it. Now, I just want to point it out because we're going to get back to load testing a bit later. But this is where you would load test that particular service, right? And load test is neat. Can be expensive, but it works really well. But we're going to get back to that a bit later. I just wanted to just point out that that's where it is. Cool. So, back to the slides. Okay. So here's my video backup in case it didn't work. Okay. If it fails, rebuild it. This is one of those servers that maybe if you actually, okay, what's the right? If, say you're on a large-ish team, right, and you need resources for building a thing, so say you're in dev, and I need a VM to build the whatever I'm doing, or I need a whatever service, right? Who's in control of that? Who creates this, the resource? Probably you, right? Especially now that you don't know. It's probably you. You go, well, I need a VM. Click. And yeah, there might be policies within the company that says, well, you can only create this size, or it has to be in this particular region, or whatever, right? But essentially, you're in charge of creating the VM. Then who cleans up the VM? Correct. No one. It will always be there. So we have this, I called it if it fails, rebuild it, because there is a service on Azure which is called Dev Test Labs. Has anyone ever heard of this? There's one person and the guy with the grey beard. Jeez, come on. No, there's two. Well, Simone apparently as well. Did you just put your hand up? Oh, 3. You used to sell it. So if you've got any questions, Simone's right here. No, Dev Test Lab is a great tool for that exact scenario, as well as many others. But you have, as it says, quickly provision your environments. So I'm going to show you all this. We've got quotas and policies, we've got automate shutdown, we've got Windows, we've got Linux. All of this within a confined service on Azure. I know, right? So I'll show you how it works. I think that's the video if it didn't work. So in here, I'm going to go to Dev Test Labs. So here's one I've created earlier, because it takes a little while to set up. But it is, think of it as a sandbox that someone controls, maybe you, maybe not. And in that sandbox is whatever you need in terms of resources. So mostly it's VMs that it's aimed at. But in here, for example, I have my own lab. And there are, you can see here, there's my lab. So this is what I have access to. So if it was on your team, someone would assign you that access and give you, with your login, you could see this. Right? So the idea is that you go into claimable virtual machines, and there's nothing there. I created one earlier, come on. Oh, because I already got it, yeah. So there's a virtual machine, right? I've claimed that, so now it's mine, right? I can use it, but I don't own it, right? It's still within this Dev Test Labs account. So if you need a new VM, or you say, hey, there's none, like I just clicked on, and you say, hey, there's no claimable virtual machines, right? Oh, I can add one if I am the administrator, if I have rights to do that. And you can add, you can see here's the base. There's a lot. Like whatever you think you need is probably here in terms of VMs, right? It's mainly VMs and disks that you can, but tons of them. So if I wanted this, 9.4, that's amazing. That's my favorite. You set it up just like any other resource on Azure, but it's within the Dev Test Labs. And now there's a resource that someone can claim. And the idea is that they claim it as long as they are using it. And it shows up under my virtual machines, or my environments, or my data disk, or whatever, right? So here I can then release this, or not. Come on. Can I go into it? Because it's just a VM. So I can connect to it. There you go, unclaim. Is that a word? Anyway, I'm now unclaiming it. So then it goes back into the pool. Now you can have policies for this, you can have rules for this on when this happens, because it could be like every day at 7 p.m., you lose all of them, right? And you got to claim them again. But who knows, depending on how you set it up. So you can see I've opted in, opted out, whatever. There's a 7 p.m. auto shutdown time, like you can do those sort of things. So you can manage the costs as well. Of course, this is about costs more than anything. But this really good idea, if you work a lot with VMs or shared keys or things, data disks or anything like that, you can actually manage this centrally for all the devs, because no one should trust devs. Trust me, don't trust, no, anyway. Because it gets you into trouble, right? Yes, Ian?
Does it work with like other Azure resources, or do I need the VMs?
Just VMs and disks and keys, secrets, keys?
Like key vaults?
Key vault, yeah, I think so, isn't that what I said? Secrets, yeah. I haven't set any up yet, but it's just a secret. Okay, it's not even Key Vault. Yeah. So it's aimed at VMs, right? But also how much of Azure is VMs? It's like 50% or something, right? It's a massive amount of VMs. Very good. So now you've seen that. My aim is to give you a bunch of tools so you know they exist and what they do, and maybe in a month's time when it comes up, you might, oh, I've heard of this thing, right? So it's not a run through exactly of everything it does. Cool. Any more questions on that? No? Make sense? Cool. All right. So, don't need that one. All right. We know that one works on my machine. Right? Yeah, it's in production. It worked on my machine. So there's Azure load testing, which is it's come a long way. It used to be really rudimentary, and now it actually has a fair amount of scripting, especially with Locust, which I've learned about. So I'll have a look. Why is it all wobbly? Okay. And yes, there's a little bit of AI as well, because we gotta have AI. So have you heard? I'm assuming you're familiar with load testing, yeah? Fire a bunch of resources essentially at an endpoint of some sort and see what happens. Speaking of seeing what happens, a bit later on, that'll be fun. So it looks like this, right? I'll show you for real in a minute. So I'm going to go through that. And then we'll also have a look at VS Code because we're devs, right? Cool. Okay. Let me just bring that up here. So, Azure load testing. Here I have created a load test, but so you get to the same screen, by the way, where I showed you before for the app services. It just leads to this. So it's like a shortcut from all the various services that you can load test. So I have created a load test here, but I'll just show you what it looks like if you start creating one. So it's really simple. We have always got to have a subscription. We've got the NDC Melbourne resource group. Give it a name. NDC test, I don't know. And a region, right? So nothing special about that. We'll go Australia East. Does anyone know, by the way, who creates the drop downs for the regions in Azure? Has anyone got a contact? I have words. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed this, my OCD just goes bonkers because, okay, this is just alphabetical. Okay, sometimes it's by region, sometimes it's by nothing, sometimes it's by hope. I don't know. It drives me bonkers because no two of them are the same. Anyway, ran over. Encryption, there. Okay, data stored in the load testing is encrypted. Of course it is. Tags, that's it. Kinda. Not exactly, but we'll just create this. Okay, come on. Please, validating. Not much to validate. Also, that create button is on the right. Just saying, it should be on the left. How to tell if you use Azure too much. So, we have another test, and it's going to create the test for us. I'm just going to go back to the, oh no, is it quick? Maybe. But it's creating one in here. So, there's the one I created earlier. There's not much to them, right? But then you have actual application infrastructure. That whole load test resource is just like a billing entity, right? So now we're creating everything in it. It's a bit like, have any of you worked with Azure AI services? Any of them? No? Oh, what have you been doing? No. So all of them have like a studio, and the resource for Azure, it's just a billing entity. You're going to see this a lot, I think, in the future. So if any of you are used to Azure, a lot of it is going to be like this. There's almost nothing in it. You have to go somewhere else to use the Azure resource. So they're fragmenting it again. I don't know if that's good or bad. But we could, let's say, create by adding HTTP requests. So in here we have the actual test, right? So it lulls you into this false sense of security, going, oh, I just created a test that doesn't do anything. So you have to do the actual test, which is much more in detail. As you can see, there's how many? 6 tabs up here. So we got to give it a name, purpose, if we need to, just to break things. Run test after creation, sure, and debug mode. I don't know all of these, I gotta admit. I don't know what all of the parameters does because there's a lot in Azure. Here's a test plan, so we can add some requests to this. So here's input in UI, a curl command, you get the idea. You can start getting really into detail on what is this testing, right? So you set up all of these parameters all throughout the test framework. So I haven't got one here right now because it gets costly sometimes, and I didn't want to break stuff, and we only got an hour. Load testing can take a while. But you put in your URL, just like you would for anything else. Then you can add parameters, of course. So environment variables, secrets, certificates, whatever those are, standard things to make the thing actually run. Here's the load. How much do you want to add to it? This is the fun bit, right? Engine instances. Well, we could actually, 10, right? We want to go for Spike so that we can really test this website, that has a big sale coming on or whatever it might be. Right, that's the idea. And you set up all these parameters to whatever it is that you need for your particular situation. Of course, that changes a lot. We can do step by step as well, all sorts, so that you get sort of these, whatever behavior you were expecting, or do all of them, right? On this URL, you can of course monitor it. That's kind of the point of it. So you want to add a monitor resource, the monitor server size metrics, so within Azure Monitor. And then we have the test criteria, and these are tricky. I was filling these out to try and get all this set up, which is when I decided not to show it live because it's really finicky, just because how the web works. So we select the metric, right? So we say response time. Then you got to set an aggregation. Well, we're going to put 75th percentile. We've got to have a condition, which is greater than, and a request name. And it never ever ends. Whoops, sorry. It gets really complicated. But the whole idea, of course, is that when you set all this up, you have a proper test that simulates your actual real world thing. That's the idea of load testing, right? So you don't want to do it half-assed. And of course, we can do server-side metrics. So the same idea. I need to set a monitor application for that. And then you get to review and create, right? So I really wanted to set one up and show you, but it's just really difficult without an actual load balancing something, and then you start paying for it as well, right? So, I had to choose my poison. But does that make sense? Right? Go for it. Questions?
You just work on the public exposed URLs? Or the internal one?
So you wanted to DDoS someone?
No, it's just on the public. It's got to be open to public.
Yeah.
URL that you're
Well, you have certificates and stuff like that. So if it is open somehow to the public,
we had the internal network.
good. I actually don't know. It's a good question. No, of course you can. You have to. Yeah, we're crazy if you couldn't, because this is an HTTP request. Let's just see. Yeah, that's okay. Here. Run existing scripts to scale. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I couldn't imagine you can't. That would make no sense. Right, it's kind of like, this is going to come in on, say, this subnet that connects to this other Azure service, which is what I really want to test. So yeah, of course. What I did want to show you is that that's kind of clunky. You go through this wizardy thing. It's like, and you can create scripts using Copilot. Because who doesn't want another Copilot? Yeah. Anyway, so in VS Code, you can install the extension here, which is Azure load testing, which does load testing on Azure. And when you have that extension installed and you have Python installed, you can, hang on, let me just go back to it here. So load testing, you can set this up with using Locust, like I was talking about earlier, which is a Python library. And then what that gives you, well, we have this walkthrough. Actually, let me just do the, no, not there. Yep, okay. And, oh, come on. Yeah, well, we can run locally, okay. So what you can do is you can generate a load test script, and it walks you through the whole thing, right? Do you want Postman collection, HTTP file, etc., etc.? You can set these scripts up, or you can just write them as well. And then Copilot will actually start creating it for you. So if you have that extension installed, the Azure load testing, and the Python as well, you get the agent, which is at testing. I can't make this any bigger, I don't think. Oh no, I could. There we go. Hey, at testing, and as soon as you do the forward space, you can actually generate load tests. You can do all this, the testing that comes from that library, right? So that's kind of where Copilot is really useful. Does anyone use Copilot day to day? Good. Okay. For coding-ish? Yeah. Not just getting programmer jokes. No. Good. Who doesn't use Copilot? Okay. Can I ask why? I know it's not an AI talk. I'm just keen. Why are you not using it if you are a dev?
There's other tools.
There's other tools.
There's other tools.
Like.
JetBrains Writer has OpenAI.
Oh, cool. So you are using a
Yeah.
Not
Not Copilot.
Yeah, got you. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, to me, it's one of those tools. Just like when remember I can't talk. Remember when ReSharper came out from JetBrains? Speaking of JetBrains, yeah. There's a few. I was gonna say old people, but yeah, there's a few people, and that was the same. It's like, why are you not using ReSharper? It's a bit the same now with whatever the AI tool is. But why are you not using a coding assistant? Now, it's not the silver bullet. Don't take like everything it does for We don't do vibe coding. Ever, please. Good story about vibe coding. Some guy did it, and he was creating a document ingestion service. So you send up documents, and it'll do a thing. And he was just vibe coding it. It's fine, man. And he was using Google Firebase database. And in I think it was 2 days, his bill was $140,000 or something, because he's just given it access, right? So don't do that, please. So yeah, this is a really cool way of you can generate testing scripts for load balancing with Copilot, just by having that extension. And these things, if you use Copilot, well, in Copilot, these are agents. There's agents as well in other coding tools, but they're really helpful because they're specific. AI tools are all about context. That gives it lots of context on how. Yeah?
What does it actually generate? Is it code or is it making something directly in Azure?
Oh. Oh, come on. It didn't, because I didn't give it. Oh, get off. I've broken it now, sorry. Well, I don't have any code to generate it off, right? But yeah, okay. Let's see what it does. An Azure test script. And it does that. Yeah, okay. So single URL. Let's see if we can get to the one I just had, right? What was it? Duh. What do you mean couldn't read? Okay, that worked early on when I did it for, I don't know what that, yeah, again, troubleshooting live demos on stage is tricky because you're looking at me. But it is. But it creates a Python file that has the connection strings, because I forgot to mention this. One of the extensions I have here is just Azure. Where is it? Come on. Maybe that's why. Where the hell did that gone? Got machine learning. Yeah, okay. There's supposed to be an Azure extension there. I don't know why it isn't there. But you have the Azure extension. Of course, you're logged into Azure through VS Code. Right. It knows about those details. But it creates a Python script, or a locus script, which is for Python, which is executed through Python, which is what you can run in here. Right. So you can upload scripts. Nope, not here. Hang on. Yeah, the CLI for it as well. There's, yeah. Anyway, I can't remember where to put the script now. But you create a load script and you get that as part of your load balancing, and you can execute that. And of course, as you can see, there's CLI access to it as well. But that's anything on Azure, so that's nothing special. But you can create PowerShell scripts as well that you might want to run this through, load balancing. Depends on what your setup is, whether you're load balancing a VM or an app service or whatever it might be, right? Whatever your target resource is. But yeah, here's the test I created earlier. I think it ran. See if I can run it again. Demo. Let's see if we run it again. So here we go. So it ran. Virtual users 48. It failed, but that's okay. I've done something wrong. But come on, open that up, and now you can see some data around that. So did 118,000 requests. Or this was on their own earlier that failed. Sorry, I don't know. Should have finished anyway. And that's why I'm not doing it as such, because it's expensive. But we had response time, we had whatever I was testing for this, whatever parameters you put in is then that comes out. Of course, you probably wouldn't look it through here. You'd get some sort of notification. Who doesn't like a Slack message, right, about load testing results? But that's the idea. But you can absolutely set them up through here, but it's a bit of a pain. I would use the scripting way for sure. All right. Here's my test code here, response time, and you can see actual response time, what it was doing. And here's the request it was running it. So we did that just before lunch. And you get all the bits out. But yeah, as far as I know, all this is available through the API as well, so you can ingest it somewhere else if you need to. All right, who has done load testing on Azure? Anyone? Has anyone ever done it? Not even Simone in the corner. I should keep picking at Simone because I know she worked for Microsoft. Yeah, I think it's critical, especially if you have large websites or you have things like, we have a really big sale or something for a website, or we're going to have this promotion or whatever. What happens when that happens, right? What's the result? So yeah, these are good. Yeah, sorry, Ian, you had a question?
Can you put it on schedules and that, or like tie it up with your...
You would do that with your scripts. No, I don't think there's a capability in here to do it. As again, the portal is not meant for, yes, do you want to add? You can put it in pipeline, yeah. But you wouldn't put it in here, it's not through the portal. As always, the Azure portal is for us to look at, not to actually do stuff, right? It's great for showing things, it's great for learning, it's great for investigating, but actually running production stuff, no. If you do your load testing once a year, who would do that, Bron? I don't know. No, of course you can. Of course you can do it. You can do it manually. You can trigger it, whatever. But that's not the intention. The intention, of course, is to put this through a pipeline or somewhere else. Right. All right. Enough about load testing. Unless you've got questions, I'm happy. But got a few more things to get through here, because you've got to look at the angry chicken, right? Who uses serverless stuff? A few hands. It's probably all of you, because it's not called serverless anymore, really. Most of it is just consumption-based. So you know what I'm talking about, right? It's Azure Functions is the main one, but all sorts of things have become serverless or consumption-based. So I want to talk about Azure Functions briefly, because I'm assuming most of you will have a pretty good understanding of Azure Functions. It's a function, right? I say Azure Functions, that's because there's many of them, but you have one at a time. My rule of thumb has always been, if my Azure function doesn't fit on a page on the screen, I'm starting to get too big. Now, it's not a complete 100% rule, but in general, I start questioning what I'm doing. It's serverless, it's rapid development, and it's what the cool kids were doing. Does anyone remember when Lambda came out from AWS? I couldn't get my head around it. I didn't understand what they were doing. That's how radical it was. And now we're just like, yeah, it's a function. But I couldn't, how do you build an application when there's no head on it? Like, where does it go? I couldn't understand it. But now we're here and we just accept it. Just like AI in 2 years. Cool, I want to show you this. It's probably not groundbreaking, but just in case you haven't seen it, I wanted to mention it. So I'm going to go to the functions. Ta-da! How good is VS Code? It keeps state and everything. It's brilliant. So that's just one of Microsoft's test applications. I use these always because you can go and download it and use it yourself if you want to. But here is, the terminal's in the way, sorry. Here is a Azure function. You can see it fits on a page. Right, even with this much zoomed in, it fits on a page. It does a thing, whatever it is it doesn't matter. But we have a whole test part of it here. So we have all the tests down here. So we have the functions test. And these are tests, right? Hopefully these are a normal pattern that you can recognize, fact theory, etc., whatever it might be. I can't remember, is this using XUnit? Yeah, XUnit. So these are tests. Has anyone not seen a test before? Good, it was a trick question. What should your code coverage be, or your test coverage of your code? What should that be? What's the right percentage? Hey? 100? No. That's the trick question. No, it's never 100. It is adequate. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. Speaking of JetBrains, like we were before, they have great tools for code coverage. It's called Red Dot or something, I think. And no, you need to have adequate test coverage. Some people use test-driven development, TDD, and you start with the tests. I always found that my brain doesn't function that way. I figure out first what you want to break. Like, no, okay, huh? So, but that works for some people. But the cool thing about Azure Functions is that the entire function runtime you can install on your computer. So you can run this locally. Even though this is Azure Functions, I can run them here. And of course, VS Code has a testing section, right? And you see I ran them earlier to make sure they worked. You can just run the test through there. So this is what this is actually doing. There's a bit much going on here, but it's running the functions locally to test them out. And this is just HTTP trigger test or something. It doesn't matter what they do. My point is that there is absolutely no excuse not to test your Azure Functions. It is the easiest thing to test because they're functions. You should know what they do, what you want in and out of them, and you can run it all locally. Anyone not do this with Azure Functions? There's like 3 tentative hands. Yeah. No, it's really important. Azure Functions are one of those things because there are usually hundreds of them. Like I've seen deployments with 200, 300 of them that all do a thing. You lose track. You 100% lose track of what's where and what they do. And if you don't have tests around them, you change one thing somewhere and there's who knows why, there's some dependency and suddenly something breaks, or much worse, doesn't break and just runs amok, right? Yes?
How do you think about testing the configuration and things like that? Because let's say you wire your Azure Functions up to say a service bus queue. Running a test locally, is it going to test that configuration of the connection to the queue on the topic?
Service bus queue. Ooh, that's a good question.
I've got my opinion on that, but I'll just...
Yeah. You're definitely going to get a book now because I like that. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Did you all get that? So if you have a service bus, how do you test that the queue on that service bus is valid or
Yeah, let's imagine when you configure a service bus trigger, you give it a string of the queue you want to connect to, connect your function to. You can invoke your function locally, and that's great, but you're not testing the point of integration, right?
No, it is very much an integration test.
Okay.
Do you use managed identity for that to connect the two?
Yeah. So
okay.
If I was doing it, I mean, Aspire supports that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also, I think with serverless stuff, at least, there's a lot of value in testing it actually in the cloud, like what would typically be called integration tests.
Yeah.
So my approach would be managed identity, deploy it, and then hit the actual endpoint.
Your approach would be, say that again?
If I was doing it,
Yeah.
deploy the function.
Deploy the function.
With the connections like a staging environment.
Yep.
And then post a message onto the queue in Azure.
Yep.
And then you're testing the actual point of integration. I think obviously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, you wouldn't run the queue locally. Like, you wouldn't have thought so.
You could do that.
You could, but...
Do that with Aspire.
Okay, yeah. Again, I learn something every time. So? There's a local service bus emulator. Cool. That would be the next talk. I'll put that in there. Yeah, that's a really good question. Like, 'cause no, it doesn't take. And my point is, like, one of the things with the managed identity. Does everyone know what managed identity is? How it works? Please, someone say no if you don't know, because it's okay. Cool. Because managed identity is one of those things that sort of flew under the radar, and is, in my opinion, the most important thing on Azure for developers. Because what it does, instead of having a service, say your Azure function, having to authenticate with your Cosmos DB, you can assign an identity to the Azure function, well, the function app, really, and then that, you give the permissions for that. The RBAC permissions, role-based access control permissions, goes to the function app. And then that is what you assign those permissions to access the DB. Oh, that died. No, it's back in. And what that means is that you don't have to manage tokens and access tokens and authentication tokens and all that stuff. You don't have to manage any of it. Azure does it for you. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but it means as developers, we're sort of taking our hands off that and saying, no, that's not my responsibility. A lot of stuff is our responsibility on the cloud, but not that, which is why absolutely use managed identity. If you don't know what it is and you're on Azure, go and learn about it. It is super important to get a really robust infrastructure for your development. Anyway, bit of an aside. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. All right, what have we got? We've got 15 minutes left. All right. So I kind of saved the best for last, I think. Well, in my opinion, right? So someone else's computer, right? We always go, yeah, but I don't control the key vault, or hey, that's not my database, or whatever it is, right? Yeah? Come on, just admit it. Like we like to go, well, that's I don't have no control. So there's something called Chaos Studio. Has anyone heard about this? It's just Simone again. Sitting going, yay! Chaos Studio, it doesn't do a lot, but what it does is amazing. And it's on Azure, right? And you can absolutely seriously mess with your team. I'll show you how. This is, yeah. Anyway, I'll show you in just a second. So there's two common scenarios that we talk about within dev. We have shift left, which is, as it says, dev test environment, no real customers. And then we have shift right, which is sort of a prod, pre-prod type testing, right? I don't know why they call shift and left and right. I'm not sure I agree with that definition, but that's sort of what has become known as that, right? But you have real customer traffic. So this we kind of know how to test for, right? The shift left, we're pretty okay with that. Yeah? Just nod. I know you don't do testing, but yeah, okay, just nod. Shift right makes most people go, ooh, right? But there's ways that you can kind of do it. Chaos Studio is one of them. All right, so some common scenarios or use cases. We might want to reproduce an incident. Like, what happened? Right, and you figure out what happened. What? What's wrong with the picture? That's an incident. We're not sure it was an accident. Could have been. Anyway, we might want to prepare for something that's going to happen. So SAIL is always a good common thing, or a massive sign up. Imagine like when, what's his face with the Tesla? Yeah, went more nuts. Everybody went to Blue Sky as a social platform, right? Especially in the developer world. Do you think Blue Sky was ready for 1 million new users in a week? Right, there was a lot of stories of, oh shit. Right? So something like that, maybe like, ooh, what if we get a massive thing of something? Regular disaster recovery drills, that's probably my go-to for the Chaos Studio. I think that's probably more likely what you would use it for. We have my name on top of it. What does that say? Application benchmarks, I think. Can you tell I added this very late in the slides? Anyway, there's planning, right? You can use this for planning, actually what's going to happen. So no, not that yet. Let me show you, because this is cool. So if we have Chaos Studio, and it's just on Azure, like it's a paid service, of course it is. Everything is paid, right? It's cloud. So you can learn about it, yada, yada, yada. So the idea is that we have, of all the resources that are compatible with this, so there's not everything on Azure, right? We have VMs, we have key vaults, we have app services, and we have network service groups, I think, something like that. Anyway, you can choose some of these as valid targets. Hopefully you're starting to get the idea of where this is going. So I have here chosen, you can see what has been enabled. Our favorite app service here has been enabled. There's a Alpaca My Bags file server. That's from my book. I have company names in there. One of them is Alpaca My Bags. There is a key vault, and I think that's it. That's all I enable. Yeah, and a VM up here. Right. So, and then we can do experiments. I needed my mad scientist hair here. So the idea is that these resources are live, right? These are not necessarily test resources. They could be. This could be a test tenant, absolutely could be, and maybe that's where you want to start. But there's nothing like testing in production. So you create either a new experiment or one from a template, such as if you create just a new experiment, well, you got to give it a name. So we're going to call this NDC Melbourne Magic or something. And then we go for permissions. Yep, that's fine. And then there's an experiment designer. So we can then now say, okay, things are going to happen to these resources. And there's an element of chaos. That's the whole idea. Chaos theory, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen. So we give it a name, step in a branch, and of course, as you can see, you can get quite specific with these things. We're just going to do something simple for now. So you're going to add an action. Either you add a delay or a fault. So a delay is just wait so long before you do the next thing. That's all it is, right? So if we add a fault, we got to select a fault. So here's all the differences. You can do AKS as well. I didn't have any Kubernetes stuff on this tenant because I didn't want to make it feel dirty. So any Kubernetes people here? Sorry. It's probably because I don't understand it quite right, and I always see it implemented really badly. But there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. You can have event hubs, CPU pressure on a VM or whatever. You can do key vault, right? So we can do something like that. So let's deny access to the key vault. And then you got to, for how long do you want to deny access? It's getting evil, isn't it? Who's liking this? Come on, admit it. Yeah, I know it. And then you select your target resources, which are from that list that you selected, right? So not everything. That's not good. Just something. And then you select this and you go add that. And now there is an experiment where access to that is denied for 10 minutes, right? Of course, the idea here is to see what happens with our system in that 10 minutes. Now, if you are in charge of this and you are the you are the tester, then you can either choose to tell the team or you can choose not to, right? Depending on what outcome you want. Maybe they know that it's coming, that this is happening over the next 3 months, or whatever, like whatever expectations you want to set up. But you can now create these tests. So if I want to review and create, that's all you have to do. As I said, quite simple, but really powerful, right? So now I can go back. I think I actually just created the same one I did before. My experiments in here, and I can start this. You're about to start a chaos experiment that could impact subscription resources or cause serious outages. They are telling you this. Are you sure you want to proceed? Absolutely. Okay, deployment succeeded. So what this does is now it's going to go and stop. I'm pretty sure it was the Azure Key Vault for 10 minutes. And then, are you going to cope? Right? And of course, you can have some that are much more complicated. So various things goes down at various times. You can start them at random times. But things, it's a really good way of saying, "Ooh, we better test our infrastructure." I do a lot of home automation, not on Azure, but one of the tests in the home automation world is what happens if your internet connection goes down? Does any of it still work? Right? It's a bit the same. Like, what happens when we have no longer access to Cosmos DB? Can we still serve, or are we going to go black? So, really, really cool thing. Has anyone going to use this now? Yes. That was quick. Yes. Yes.
Does anybody actually do this in production? Because I feel like it's also then a test of the support team and your incident management and everything.
So the question is, does anyone actually do this in production? And I am actually going to ask Simone. Does anyone actually use Chaos Studio in production?
Yeah, like some of our partners and bigger customers.
Yeah? I'm only asking Simone because you used to actually sell it or use it, right?
The first came out, it's quite hard to use, but it's similar to the one that Netflix has. So like there's definitely precedent for big companies like Netflix.
Yep.
And some people just use it as part of their pipelines of but do they use it and like do big event, like they'll do a DDoS attack or they'll do if you're about to drop a bunch of TVs.
But is it in production?
They test in production, you mean they test in production environments?
Yep.
I don't know. I would imagine so, yeah, because you want to test.
I think that's the idea.
Netflix does auto healing stuff in there.
Yep.
So like that kind of size.
And they're not going to do it at 2 p.m., right? It'll be at 2 a.m. for a minute or something.
They normally do that at Christmas time, like I do my Lotus at Christmas time.
Do it at Christmas time.
Yeah. My other question is this a valid way to also, when you've got, say, that sometimes database goes down and needs to handle a certain way, but you can never recreate that deliberately in a test environment.
Oh.
This is a way to do
Yeah, so I'll just repeat it so you can all hear it. Is this a valid way to recreate something like a database breakdown? Is that what you're saying, right?
Because you can't force it easily, especially on Azure. It's hard to force certain types of files.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of safeguards around it, so you can't do this incidentally. And yeah, this is a way to do it in a managed way. It's called chaos for a reason, right? It's not just chaos theory. It will cause chaos, potentially as well. I just think it's a really neat tool that none of you knew about, right? And it's super simple. It's really, really basic. What isn't basic is all the stuff that goes before it. How are we going to use it? That's a much harder conversation, but the tool itself, no problem, right? And it is that simple. Now, we have 4 minutes left, and I'm going to give a book to Bron, because she's asked lots of questions, and the gentleman over there with the stickers, so don't run away afterwards. Bron doesn't want the book. She just uses them for monitor stands, so... Oh, geez. All right, I just want to run through this quick because there is help. If you're testing large frameworks, there is help. Testing architectures, these are recommended approaches by Microsoft. So we have for Azure pipelines, they have, and you can go and look all this up. So I'm just going to run through it pretty quick. But there is absolutely ways that Microsoft recommends that you use Azure resources in a testing or in a robust capacity, right? So there is for Azure pipelines, there is for web apps, so they're all similar but different. There is for dev tests, so this is your dev test lab, right? How you should set that up with your pipelines. Not labs, sorry, dev test pipelines. And there is for infrastructure as a service as well. So those are, there's a lot of documentation on, right? I'm just showing pretty pictures, but there's a lot. So yes, Ian.
I have a gotcha that I learned with the deployment slots.
With the what?
With deployment slots on Azure web apps.
Oh, web app, sorry, I went the wrong way. Come on.
Yeah. So if you have scaling on your production, let's say you're running 3 production instances.
Yep.
And you create a slot, it'll create 3 slots of that. So it can get very expensive if you create slots.
Yeah.
And scaling. Just a gotcha for people that want to.
Hey, so you're saying cloud computing can be expensive?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Things like auto scaling and things are to be watched. Okay, we're almost done. Ian getting a book, absolutely. I think I got 3. So we got John? James. Oh, it's close. That's a pure guess. This is my last slide. I'm like, seriously, just stop with the excuses. As devs, we are horrible at doing testing, and don't deny it. I know we are, because I'm there. But it's not that difficult. There's a lot of stuff we can do. We're not saying we should do all of it, but do something, like start somewhere. Otherwise, someone's going to find Chaos Studio and fire it up when you don't know. Cool. Thank you very much. Last question. If you don't put a green card in the bucket, your mum doesn't love you. So thanks so much for coming to my talk, and enjoy the rest of the conference.